Welcome to Filthy Casuals Review, a game where two bumbling magic morons try to match wits with the best brains Limited has to offer, and Marshall Sutcliffe. Just kidding, love you, Marshall. Here's how it works. When a new Magic set comes out, pro player Luis Scott-Vargas and self-proclaimed food and beverage director Marshall Sutcliffe grade all of the commons and uncommons from the set on their excellent podcast, Limited Resources. Kenny and Seth have each done a blind review of the cards on their own. The goal? Get as close as possible to the grades the pros gave them. I'll let LSV explain the grading system.
A's.
These are your bombs, your game winners, just the best cards in the set. They tend to be really efficient, good in many situations, or just capable of ending a game by themselves.
B's.
B's are cards that actively pull you towards their colors. These are headliners for a set, go-to cards, and reasons to be in a particular color, clan, or guild.
C's.
C's are playable. Most cards fall into this category. They're fairly interchangeable, and you're going to end up with a bunch in your deck. C's don't mean bad. C's are just kind of your average card.
D's.
D's are sometimes playable, but you'd prefer not to run them. These are the cards that, when you've got these in your deck, you kind of wince a little. You're actively unhappy that you have to play them.
F's.
And then F's are basically unplayable.
Seth and Kenny will get points based on how far off they are from the professional grades. It's a lot like golf. There's a lot of cursing and the low score wins. To spice it up, the loser of our little game will have to buy a booster box of the new set for the winner. Stick around till the end of the show to see who won. But for now, let's talk about some of the truly awful decisions Kenny and Seth made, and maybe even some of the valuable lessons learned, as Filthy Casuals review...
Innistrad, Midnight Hunt.
Hello and welcome to Filthy Casuals Review. Live edition, coming
That's
at
right.
you live from my house, where Seth is. We'll have, hopefully, identical audio quality in this
Well, let's hope so.
for once. Not going to waste any time here. We're going to get right into the awards.
Sounds great.
Just after I said let's not waste any time, I did have a stray thought while I was wandering back here, which is that it's funny we had the intent of like, oh, we don't want to wait for the next set to do our next Filthy Casuals review, but now we live in a world where there's a new Magic set every month or so.
They're cranking them out quick, yeah.
So we haven't done one since the last one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, until the spoiler train slows down, we're just going to keep doing them as they come out.
We'll keep rolling them, yeah.
Okay, so Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. I played a fair amount of it, which you can check out on our show.
Very good content.
MTG ASMRs. You can see me struggling to figure out what the hell this format was about. I had ample opportunity for defeats. So we're going to start with my defeat. Kenny's defeat was 50 feet of rope. Do you remember this card?
Vaguely. Yeah.
This is an artifact. 1 mana for an artifact has 3 different options. You can climb over, so you can tap it to make a wall and able to block. You can tie somebody up, pay 3, a creature doesn't untap during the next untap step.
That's right.
Or you can repel down, pay 4, and venture into the dungeon. This is an uncommon. And honestly, this just comes down to a bad misread of the card. Because I looked at the 3 tap, it doesn't untap. And I read that as it taps and doesn't untap.
Okay.
Which would have been a very different kind of card. But yeah, it was just a bad misread. Even so, I don't know that I gave it a B+, they gave it a D or F. Even if I knew exactly what the card did and hadn't misread it, I think I still probably would have graded it too highly.
Okay.
I saw it a couple times in my time playing this format, and it was never good. Never.
Okay.
So it's just straight up a bad card that I said was a first pickable B+ awesome card. Okay. Seth's defeat. Do you have any inkling what this might be?
I really don't.
It is another artifact, I will say.
Is it? Well, that part doesn't surprise me, but which one?
It is Bag of Holding.
Oh no. I really wanted that one to work too.
Yep. So this is another 1 mana artifact in uncommon. It's a reprint. When you discard a card, exile that card from your graveyard. You can pay 2 to loot. Pay 4, sacrifice the bag to get all of the discarded cards with it back to your hand.
Okay.
It looks good on paper. I see why you gave it the grade that you did. I went back and listened to their original comments for the card.
Sure.
Limited Resources said, you just don't have time to do all these things.
Okay.
LSV said he's played with this card before, where it was first printed in Core Set 2020, and it's not good.
Okay.
So it wasn't very good in that set, and as it turned out, this set was very aggressive.
Which makes sense, yeah.
And so it's like, there's just not time to do all this tapping, looting, and slowly squeezing out some value from it when you're just getting beat down by 1, 2, and 3 drops.
Okay, that's fair. That is fair.
All right, on to your Triumph immediately after.
Okay.
Would it surprise you to know that this also is an artifact?
That does not surprise me. I really state my case on these artifacts.
Which is, you called it last time, because the last time your victory was a 3-mana rock that tapped for 1 and had some upside, and here we are again.
Yep.
Dungeon map. So 3 mana, tap, add a colorless, pay 3, tap, venture into the dungeon as a sorcery. Another uncommon. So that's 2 formats in a row where the LR boys initially undervalued a 3-mana rock, and you have nailed it both times. You gave it a B-, they gave it a C-.
Okay. So I do have one question on this one here. So this one, just from your experience, was venturing into the dungeon, was it a strong mechanic from what you saw? No. Okay, so that's where this one here, I was very nervous that if the venturing mechanic was not very strong, this one could kind of crumble. Whereas if venturing into a dungeon was very strong, this one actually had some merit. So even the 3-mana rock portion of it, that was good enough to carry the weight of making sure this worked out. So that's good.
It was a 3-mana rock with some upside.
Yeah.
That wound up being okay. It's not like Venture was unplayable.
Sure.
At the end of their time in Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, in their Sunset show, they made it out like Venture sucked ass. It was worthless.
Okay.
I don't think it's that bad.
Okay.
I think you can make it work. It's not like you shouldn't be doing this at all. So this does have value, especially if you stall out. That doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, having some repeatable thing that already helped you earlier on in the game is quite nice.
Very good.
My Triumph goes the other way. Instead of a good card that they underrated, this is a bad card that I correctly rated.
Oh, very good.
So this is Drider.
I remember that one.
So that's 4 and a black for an elf spider, a 4/3 reach. When it deals combat damage to a player, you make a 2/1 black spider creature token with menace and reach.
Okay.
Which is a great token. My whole issue with it, I gave it a C-, they gave it a B. My issue was, how are you connecting with this thing? A 5-mana 4/3, how are you attacking into them and hitting them and getting this token? And then on defense, it's a 4/3 reach for 5 mana. Sure, it can block something, but it's going to die doing it. It's okay. I just didn't see it as being any kind of all-star. Eventually, the LR boys said, it's below average. I definitely overrated it in my initial ratings.
Okay. Well, and I think we'll get into this here in the next set here that we're going to be discussing. It just doesn't really fit the theme. And it just really doesn't have a place. So while it may look cool on paper, actual practice kind of loses its luster.
And as with a lot of cards in this set, because it slanted so aggressive, it really changed the valuation of a lot of these cards.
Very much
and in
so.
a fast set, a 5-mana 4/3, whatever its upside is not super exciting.
Yep, that's fair.
Speaking of because it slanted so aggressive, the wild card. So this is another artifact, if you can believe it, but not a colorless one.
Okay.
This is Boots of Speed.
Oh, I remember that one.
Boots of Speed is 1 red mana for an artifact equipment. The equipped creature gets +1/+0 in haste. It's equip 1. We all gave it a D or an F. Everybody.
Okay.
And it wound up being quite good.
Really? That's very interesting.
I mean, it does not look like much, but it was so... The format was so fast. You had pack tactics as a part of the format. So giving an extra power went a long way. And then haste could enable pack tactics out of nowhere.
Okay.
You only had 3 power on the board. You play a 2/2, equip it, you're attacking, you're hitting with pack tactics.
Okay.
And it was great in the equipment deck. It's so cheap on the equipment deck.
Makes
this card. And as we said, the format just turned out leaning very heavy into aggression.
Very good.
It made this card quite a bit better. This wound up being something like C+, B- at the end of the day. So actually wound up being very good.
Very good. I was surprised. I knew that set was going to be more on the aggressive side, but not as aggressive as it actually ended up in practice.
It's so hard to tell because you look through every format has aggressive cards, and it's just so hard to know, is this going to actually pan out on the side of aggro? This time it did.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Okay, so those are our awards. We're going to get to Innistrad Midnight Hunt after a quick word from our sponsors.
Welcome back to Beholder to One Shot, where I'm joined by guests in the TTRPG community, and we play usually non-D&D one-shots.
Is a conglomeration of many Furbies.
Oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck,
We
oh fuck.
run
15.
Dang it.
We're two baby adventurers.
We're level 4.
Is that the right direction?
Shh. Oh wait, we're speaking telepathically.
Search your feelings. You know it to be true that one of you has a really annoying voice.
No!
Each of you roll a die and explain why I shouldn't be the one to stomp you, or if you like get an extra die for that.
I got a 6.
There's a good reason.
5.
It's also pretty good.
Got a 4.
Slightly
It's
good.
okay.
I made it to another town, but it's not stopping. Is it me? Am I causing this? Am I the reason? And they go into ramblings of a person who thinks that they are the one that is causing this chaos. Check us out wherever podcasts can be found every other Thursday on Beholder to No One.
All right, what do you say we kick things off as usual with the multicolor cards?
Let's do it.
And see where we land. Do you mind if I lead things off?
Absolutely.
See, we both have a note on the very first card, which is Arcane Infusion. Arcane Infusion, blue-red for an instant, uncommon. There are 2 uncommons for each color pair, which is interesting. Anyway, blue-red instant, look at the top 4 cards of your library, reveal an instant or sorcery card from among them, put it in your hand, the rest go on the bottom. Flashback, so you can play it from your graveyard once, for 3 blue-red. So for 5 mana, you can do that again. Now, I said C-, they said C+, you said B-. So we kind of straddled where they wound up on it.
Yeah.
So here's my comment on it. I actually wanted to give this a D or F. That was my first instinct. And the reason I wanted to say that is because it's 2 mana to cycle, basically. Like a strategic planning kind of effect, which they traditionally aren't very excited about. And then for 5 more mana, you get another one of that. So it's a very slow 2 for 1.
Yes.
I was like, I don't think that's good enough. 7 mana for a possible 2 for 1. Because remember, you can miss on this.
Yeah, you can.
It's not any card you put in your hand. It has to be instant or sorcery. And so for that, I was like, it feels like a D or F, and then I hedged my bets and said C-, which I'm glad I did.
Yep.
LSV noted, he did the hyper geometric calculator.
Oh, yeah.
And he said that if you have 10 other instants and sorceries, you are 71% to hit on this card to draw an instant or sorcery. That doesn't feel good enough to me, where it's like 1 out of 4 times you just cast this and nothing happens. You just wasted mana and a turn to do that, especially on the flashback side.
Yeah.
You're spending 5 mana to maybe miss. And that's if you have 10 other instants and sorceries.
That's punishing.
So it seemed like a lot to me. Maybe their grade is right, because if you do have a really strong instant and sorcery deck, maybe it's worth that, but didn't seem that good. You really liked it, though.
This one here was more hedging my bets just based on history, so using my method here of this multicolored uncommons typically are in the B- range, so I kept it as is. But I was with you. I actually wanted to make this a lot of... I didn't like this. Now, I did like the initial cost for blue-red, top 4 cards. That's fine. I have no problem with that. And the flashback cost, I thought was really expensive for what you got, just to your point. For a swing and a miss, potential swing and a miss, that would be backbreaking. So I kind of judged it based on the initial bit, and you have it with the flashback ability just in case. But I trusted the process on this one. I'm glad I did, but I probably would have been closer to the low to mid C as well. So I think you and I were pretty close on where we initially would have thought.
Thinking.
Yeah.
That's fair. So speaking of us being similar on initial thinking, what do you think about Faithful Mending?
Faithful Mending. Well, I thought it was pretty decent. Let me just explain what Faithful Mending is. It is a white and a blue mana. It's an instant. It's uncommon. You gain 2 life, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. You have a flashback cost of 1, a white and a blue. Now, I like the cost of this one much better. So, it's 2 colored mana for the initial cast, but instead of 5 total, as you saw in Arcane Infusion, this one here's merely 3.
For the flashback.
For the flashback cost. So, I kind of equate this to looking at it as 5 mana, we'll say.
Total.
Yeah, 5 mana total. You gain 4 life, you draw 4 cards, then you can discard 4 cards at that rate. With this set, the graveyards are very important with this set, just as an overarching theme. So having that ability isn't really as much of a drawback as it would be in some other sets. So I thought, that's actually some pretty good value there. So I personally rated this as a B-. Again, kind of going back to the method here with that one. Really didn't have any problems with that. I probably would have rated it that. Good. It does. I would start actively looking towards those colors if I saw some other blue, white. Yeah, I'd start going towards it. You gave it a B, even higher than I did. That being said, Limited Resources gave this a D or an F. So they wouldn't even play this card.
Yeah.
I'm kind of at a loss on this one. I really think that this is a better card than a D or an F, especially. Even just the mana curve itself, I think, is on par with like what this set looks like. Just another note from my side, this very much looks like a fast set to me. I think it's going to be very aggro, and I think having that life gain, I think would be great. Card draw, we all know how good that is, and then the discard isn't necessarily that much of a drawback here in this case. So I think this is hitting a lot of the things. If you do want to go maybe a control route, that's classic blue-white colors, a classic archetype with that. So I think this fits a lot. I'm very surprised to see a D or an F with this one.
I think if you threw this exact card as printed into, let's say, like a normal like core set or something like that.
Oh, this would be amazing.
Oh, I don't agree with that.
No.
I was going to say, I actually think I agree with LR. Just throw this in a typical set.
Okay.
You're talking about spending a total of 5 mana to
fair.
Draw 4 cards, discard 4 cards, and it costs you a card. So at the end of the day, you're down a card.
Yeah.
And you've spent lots of mana multiple turns doing this to eventually lose out on a card.
Good point.
You gain 4 life, but... so I would kind of agree with them. But like you're saying, I was just like, okay, you've got flashback, obviously. So you can discard flashback cards for value to get back some of your card disadvantage. And then blue-white, their big theme is disturb, which is basically flashback for creatures, is a quick way to think about it. It's not quite that because they actually come back transformed into a different creature. And sometimes that's even better. Like, there are disturbed creatures you would prefer to send to the graveyard and not even bother with their crappy normal version. So I'm just thinking, and there are so many ways to mess around the graveyard. I assumed that this would be fine. I would not be surprised if we came back to this later and this one goes up a lot.
I wouldn't be surprised either.
And I was going to say, even if it's a fast format, the 2 life that you're gaining while you're fucking around with drawing and discarding cards is actually pretty notable.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I totally agree with them. It is slow and dirtily. I mean, this might fall into the same bin as Bag of Holding, where it's like you're just spending too much time moving cards around to different zones without actually committing anything to the board. Maybe that's why it's not good enough. But I don't know. I can see this actually coming up quite a bit as the format goes on. It kind of depends on the speed, I guess.
That's fair. Very good.
Did you have any that you wanted to talk about?
Not for multicolor at this point.
I'll mention one more card.
Okay.
Unnatural Moonrise.
Okay.
This is a card that you gave a C to. So did they. I gave it a B+. We all gave it a build around. So Unnatural Moonrise. Red, green for a sorcery. It becomes night. So we haven't talked about any of these cards yet.
But
basically, they have revisited how werewolves work from old Innistrad. And the way they work now is all the werewolf cards have an ability on the front side and the back side, day-bound or night-bound. And they work the same way as they used to in that when you have these werewolves in play, if nobody casts a spell for a turn, they flip over. If somebody casts 2 spells, it flips back. The difference is that there are 2 differences, I guess. One, there's a day-night cycle for everybody. It's universal. So it's not like I have to track it, you have to track it. It's either day or night at any time. And it also only keys off of whoever's turn it is. So let's say it's my turn and I'm wanting to transform my shit. I can pass the turn and not do anything. And even if you have an instant that you play, it still goes to night on your turn. So, coming back to the card. 2 mana, it becomes night. Until end of turn, target creature gets +1/+0 and gains trample, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. And then you can pay 4 mana, 2 red-green to flash it back. Now, like I said, you said C, so did they. I gave it a B+. My thinking about this is that, one, it can get you a card at the end of the day with the normal cast and the flashback. They didn't mention this in their discussion at all, but they did mention the value you can get just by flipping it to night out of nowhere. It's your turn, it's day, your opponent's like, okay, it's daytime. And then suddenly you can cast this, and you have 2 or 3 werewolves that suddenly turn into their more powerful version, and you're getting +1/+1 trample, and you're drawing a card. I thought all of that together was enough to maybe push this up a little bit. B+ might still be just a little too eager, because at the end of the day, it's replacing itself. It really all hinges on, do you have I think you really need to be built around. You really need to have a day-night deck with werewolves.
Yes.
But that's also what this card is. It's red-green werewolf build around.
It is.
That's what this card is for. I'm curious how it plays out. I do think I was over-eager in giving it a B+, though.
Sure. I actually rank this down to the C instead of the B- where it initially fell for my method. And the reason being was I kind of changed my method just a little bit whenever I was actually reviewing these cards. Typically, I would start with the multicolored cards, and then I just do the monocolored cards. I actually flipped that this time. I think that helped in this regard.
To see how much support there was for it.
Yeah, because I wanted to see how much... because I know that these multicolored cards are typically the ones you really want to go after. So, yeah, you look at those, you're like, wow, these are great. I wonder what kind of support they might have. Instead, now I know that answer. It's like, well, maybe this doesn't have as much support, or maybe I would go out and say that the red-green werewolf archetype is probably going to be one of the stronger ones. I just felt like that was one of the most developed, personally, one of the most developed archetypes that I saw. But I tend to go more aggro, so I looked at that and I was like, wow, there's a lot of stuff here that goes with it. So that being said, I would want my value in aggro to be within the creature cards themselves versus having to have a sorcery or an instant, which was kind of weird. This is one just like a little tangent that I have here. I noticed there's a lot of sorcery. I felt like there's a lot more sorceries than instants in here. Paired with aggressive creatures, they really want these board states to have a lot of creature-based actions. And there was a lot of like enter the board effects, or there was a lot of attacking effects. They really wanted us to have these creatures out there instead of just, get rid of them real quick or something like that. So I thought that was really interesting. So I actually ranked sorceries down just a little bit in general for me because I felt like that's a little bit slow for this format.
This card would have been way more interesting. Maybe it would be too obnoxious. It'd be way more interesting as an instant. The ability to, you block with a werewolf on the human side and then boom, cast this, flips to the werewolf, suddenly eats your creature. That gets really interesting. Same thing with like, you attack, one of your werewolves gets through, boom, you hit it with this, you get extra damage, you get to draw a card. And maybe they even tried that, it was just too annoying to play against.
Yeah, it very well could have been.
Alright, well, let us proceed onward to white. What card do you want to talk about in white?
Let's talk about Ritual Guardian. So, don't necessarily have any kind of issue with the ratings that we have here. So, just to go over the ratings real quick. I gave this a C-. Limited Resources gave this a C- to maybe a D or an F. They were kind of playing around with that. You gave it a C as well. So this card is 2 and a white. It's a 3/2 human soldier creature. And it has Coven, which is one of the mechanics for this set. And this one explains, at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, this card gains lifelink until end of turn. So one thing that I was kind of looking at, and I know Limited Resources has had this discussion before about if they were looking at larger creatures with larger power and toughness that cost more versus something that with like a, we'll say, medium. I know there was like a 6/4 creature for 6 in a previous set versus a 4/4 creature for 4 in a set. They actually preferred the 4/4 for 4. That's a lot of 4s in there. So I kind of wanted to ask you like what your thoughts were on this one, because we both ranked them respectively the same. So I was kind of curious to see what you would say. Which one would you prefer if these were both the last 2 cards in this set? This is the color that you're actually trying to go for. Which one would you actually choose? So my question is between Ritual Guardian and Candlegrove Witch. And Candlegrove Witch is 1 and a white instead of 2 and a white. This is now a 2/2 creature. It's a human warlock. This has Coven. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have 3 or more creatures with different powers. So same thing for the Coven requirement. Candlegrove Witch gains flying until end of turn. So we're effectively talking about a 3/2 for 3 with lifelink, or a 2/2 for 2 with flying.
If you have Coven.
If you have Coven. So which one would you go for if you were pressed to actually make this pick?
I'm in white. I'm choosing between these 2 cards.
Correct.
I would choose Candlegrove Witch.
I would too. I like it better.
Yeah. I think that the difference in... it's kind of both things. The difference between 2 mana and 3 mana is pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
And for that extra mana, you're getting 1 point of power.
Mm-hmm.
Which means you're not going up in toughness. So you're just as fragile.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to... This 3 mana card is going to die to some 2 mana cards. And then also later in the game, I would rather have my cheap creature sometimes get flying than sometimes get lifelink on the attack. Candlegrove Witch can actually poke through some extra damage by having flying. Yep. Whereas, you attack with the Ritual Guardian later in the game, it'll trade off for something and you'll gain some life.
Sure.
Or you might not even be able to attack with it. I mean, that's going to happen too. And you're just throwing it away to gain some life. So I think the Witch wins out, across the board. And it's straight up.
I think it does for me too. It's kind of curious to see where that actually falls, because especially for this set, I had very similar thoughts. I think lifelink kind of delays the inevitable. If you have a bad board state, I think I'd rather be more on the offensive with this set. Yeah. And I think Candlegrove Witch provides that. So it's interesting to kind of see how these picks would be made. So we're in agreement there.
It is fun. I think it's interesting that you picked those both out, because you gave both those cards a C-. I gave them both a C.
Yeah.
I assume that went into why you wanted to talk about we evaluate these roughly at the same level, which I stand by. But in a heads up, I would give the nod to the Witch.
Yep. Very good.
Very interesting.
Okay. Did you have one you wanted to talk about in white?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to think about which one I want to talk about more. Maybe let's talk about Cathar's Call.
Okay.
Because we both disagree pretty heavily with LR on this one. So, Cathar's Call. This is 2 and a white for an enchantment aura. Enchants a creature. Enchanted creature has vigilance, and at the beginning of your end step, you create a 1/1 white human creature token. You gave it a C+, I gave it a B-, so we were fairly close, but LR gave it a D or F. So, this has some obvious drawbacks, right? It's enchanting a creature, it's an aura. Has all the classic drawbacks of enchanting a creature.
Yep.
However, the fact that it makes a token at your end step means that you're getting spotted a 1/1, unless they have mana open and some kind of instant speed disruption. You're at the very least getting a 1/1 token at the end of the deal. Now, they basically just said it's too much risk. they said, I thought there was something interesting they mentioned right when they were evaluating it. It's like, imagine if instead of being an aura, imagine it was just 2 white enchantment, make a 1/1 human creature at the end of your turn. All of a sudden, they would be super on board.
Okay.
They think that would be awesome. And I agree. It would be way better if that's all it said.
Okay.
Because now, instead of any creature interaction, which there's tons of, it has to specifically kill an enchantment or a non-land permanent or something like that. So that would definitely be better. The fact that you have a little bit of a buyout, you're getting a 1/1 creature no matter what. You really only need this to live 1 turn, at which point you have 2 1/1 creatures. And then if you get a 3rd turn, I think you've more than made up your investment.
Yeah.
Now you've paid 3 mana for 3 1/1 humans. Plus you're getting vigilance. Plus you are still open to getting more in the future. I agree. There's some. It's fragile.
Sure. Yeah.
It's open to being removed, but I don't see how this is horrible. The more I think about it, though, it kind of reminds me of Fly from the last set.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
This was in the last set. 1 blue gave a creature flying, and when it hits, you venture into the dungeon. Much cheaper.
Sure.
So less setup cost, but it has a similar thing where if they kill your creature, you're kind of hosed. And because you attack and hit with it, presumably, you're getting a little bit of value no matter what. That card wound up not being very good.
Okay.
So maybe that's a sign that this card is not actually very good.
It very well could be.
Nevertheless, it's definitely a card you will lose to. I will lose to. Because sometimes they'll go on a creature, you don't have the removal for it, and they're going to just make 5 1/1 human creatures. And meanwhile, they'll be smacking you with some flying vigilance creature that's equipped up.
Yeah. This definitely needs to be addressed from an opponent's perspective. And to me, I think that holds weight in itself. I mean, if you have multiple creatures, what you could do is you could have an all-star creature. You could put this on, maybe a mediocre creature. I don't know. It kind of depends on the board state and what your plan of attack is. But if you put Cathar's Call on that medium creature, now you've got 2 legit threats that you need to deal with, and you're really putting your opponent in a pickle at that point. So, I don't know. Like, there is, I'm sure, game theory around this, like where, like in chess, you sacrifice your pawns to...
I definitely like the play of casting some 1 or 2 drop and throwing this on there.
Sure.
Especially like a cheap flyer.
Yeah.
Throwing this on there. Now your opponent has this, like, they need to deal with this. They need to take it out, and they're using it to kill your crappy flyer.
Yeah.
Your disturbed flyer that you bought back from the graveyard. You put this on. Now they're just going 1 for 1, and you've already gotten some tokens out of it. It definitely puts them in a bind.
It does. Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, on to blue.
Okay.
So this is I'm going to talk about some cards here at the beginning, but then I think you're going to kind of take over the cards you want to talk about from here on out.
That sounds good.
I'm going to talk about 2 cards back to back. We can just talk about them at the same time. Devious Cover-Up and Dissipate. They're back to back in the alphabetical order. Devious Cover-Up is 2 blue for an instant. Counter a spell. If it's countered this way, you exile it, and you can shuffle up to 4 target cards from your graveyard to your library. And Dissipate is 1 blue for an instant. Counter a spell. If it's countered this way, exile it. So it just 1 mana cheaper, and you don't get to shuffle some cards back. I gave both of these cards a D or an F.
Sure.
You gave Devious Cover-Up a D or F.
I did.
Dissipate a C-. They gave both of them a C. Now, let me get on my little soapbox here for these cards. We have done a number of these now. LR has consistently hated basically every counterspell.
Oh, yeah.
They don't like any counterspells. And we've said on previous episodes, I vowed to myself, if it's not as good as Mana Leak, I need to be giving it the boot. I saw a 4-mana counterspell. I didn't even read the rest of it, to be honest.
That's all I need to know.
Unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. They won't accept 3-mana counterspells, let alone a 4-mana counterspell. And then Dissipate, I was like, it's a 3-mana counterspell at the end of the day. Now let me anticipate where I think you're going to go with this. It exiles the spell.
That's correct.
So if it has Flashback, if it has Disturb, any kind of graveyard shenanigans, it's just gone for good.
Yep, that's exactly where my head was.
Let me tell you my thinking on that.
Okay.
And I want to stand by this. So compare this to Cancel.
Okay.
Cancel is embarrassing into a card with flashback, let's say.
Yep.
They cast it, you cancel it, you both spent a card, and now they get extra value in the graveyard.
Yeah.
So when you play Dissipate into a flashback, it counters the whole card. So you spent 3 mana to counter an entire card. Do you know what that is? It's just cancel.
Yeah, it is.
You've brought it up to the level of a regular cancel.
Yeah.
3 mana, this card doesn't do anything. And that has consistently been given a D or an F by limited resources.
No, that's very true.
I don't think there's any magic that happens when you say the card I could have played it from my graveyard. It's still, best case scenario, it plays exactly like a cancel in any ordinary set.
That's a really good point.
Which is not good,
it's
according to
not.
them.
Yeah.
I think it's fine. I personally think, I kind of agree, I think you're on the right page as far as where I think the card actually is.
Sure.
As far as where LR consistently puts 3 mana counter spells, should be a D or an F.
I see the logic there. Yeah, that doesn't make much sense. So, yeah, I still agree. And I kind of hedged my bets because I thought, well, this card is relevant to the set just because of what you mentioned. So I said, let's just try a C- with that and see if it sticks. And then going beyond that, yeah, to your point, a 4 mana counterspell isn't going to be worth anything. If something like Dissipate's marginal, there's no way adding another mana to that is really ever going to be used.
Now, to be fair, Marshall gave this a D straight up. Devious cover.
Okay.
He just said that's a D.
Okay.
LSV said it depends. He said it could range from a D up to a B, depending on the format. This is a reprint, which I didn't realize.
Oh, I didn't realize that either.
And in the previous set it was such a slow, grindy format that the 4 cards you get back into your library actually mattered. So he was used to drafting control decks where this was actually the win condition. Kind of in an elixir of immortality kind of way.
I'm all about that.
It's interrupting their plan and drawing out the game and giving you more resources over the course of an extremely long game.
Okay.
So I think his point is, if this set is very slow, this card will actually be quite good.
This format will not be slow, though.
No way.
It will not be slow whatsoever.
I would be absolutely shocked if this card is good in this set. I just think it's an F, straight up.
I do too. I didn't give it any thought whatsoever.
So I finally, made the adjustment on counter spells and gave them Ds or Fs, and they gave them both Cs. Those fuckers.
Don't worry, I get punished for something else.
Okay.
Said that we would make a stand on, so we're probably even on something like that.
Very good. All right, take it away.
Okay, I've got this stupid card. Mysterious Tome. I'll read out what it is. It's 2 and a blue. It's an artifact, uncommon. It is double-sided. On the front side, what would the front side be called?
I think the front side's
okay. On the front side, it is 2 and tap, draw a card, transform Mysterious Tome. Okay, so once transformed, it becomes Chilling Chronicle. Again, an artifact. Pay 1, tap to tap target non-land permanent, and then you transform Chilling Chronicle again. It goes back and forth as you do that.
Right.
I gave this a D or an F. You gave this a C+. LR gave this a C+. And I hate this card. I absolutely hate this card. It's stupid and slow. And I think this is the card that officially pissed me off whenever I realized that the Daybound and Nightbound images are the exact same as just these flip cards. And I never know if this one needs to flip at night or flip in the day or anything like that. So that is definitely a miss on Wizards' part. I really, really don't like that they use the exact same icons for all this stuff. They need to have something unique because it's absolutely ridiculous. But I just think this card is super slow. Immediately off here for the front side, you're paying 5 mana to draw 1 card, which I think is ridiculous. And then once you transform it, then you pay another mana to tap a non-land permanent. That part's fine. I guess once you actually get up to that part, you still have invested 6 mana to tap a target permanent and draw a card. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I think this is incredibly slow. Usually I'm pretty big onto oh yeah, these are value engines or something like that. But I just think this is just a mana sink, and I think this has no place. But again, this is probably me being I like to be the more aggressive type. Maybe from a control standpoint, maybe this is awesome, but I don't see it myself.
You know, as you're describing it, I'm agreeing with you more, I think. Because the fact is, this card, whether it transforms or not, you get one activation per turn.
One a turn.
It would be different if you could do multiples.
Sure.
I think. Because then you could imagine, on a turn, you pay 3 mana for it. And on some later turn, pay 2, draw a card, pay 1, tap a thing down.
Sure.
Now
that would be fine. I'd be fine with that.
Now you're onto something. But it's just one or the other. The one tap a non, I think, here's what I would say. I think you're going to be most happy with one tap a thing.
I think so too.
Because that's like Icy Manipulator territory.
Sure. Yeah.
As far as limited goes. It doesn't tap a land. But we don't really care about that.
Yeah,
we want to be tapping creatures. One tap a non-land permanent is... You don't get that rate these days. Because
that's true.
It's really strong. So that's really good. And then on your next turn, paying 2, you're basically trying to get back to that form. But what a bonus you're getting for waiting that turn by getting a card. I think, honestly, hearing you talk about it, I mean, I'm a big proponent of thinking about what do I have to do before I start seeing something. Sure. And 5 mana draw a card is a lot of work to get your card back. And then you're tapping a thing, and then 2 mana and another turn later you're getting, finally, you're seeing a return on your investment.
Yeah.
It's dubious. The tap does help because the tap does buy you more time to get you the card. So in that way, the two modes do kind of synergize.
Sure.
One's drawing you cards, the other's buying you the time to use those cards.
That's fair.
I think I would, after you and I talked about it, I would bring my grade down.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'll stand pretty firm on my DRF. This might actually be my victory card.
It could well be, especially if the format is quick. You're not going to have time to do this.
No, I don't think so either.
Okay, the ball is still in your court.
Okay,
you tell me what you want to talk about here. Seems like you had a lot of stuff to talk about in blue.
I did actually. And maybe that was just again, I'm more the aggressive type, so blue is really not as much of my forte. I primarily go towards your reds, greens. Actually, I guess I'll just say it, any color but blue, really. So yeah, I probably just have just a difference of opinion in how I approach this stuff. But one that I do have a different opinion about, I'll put it that way, is Otherworldly Gaze. So this one here is a blue mana. It's an instant. It's common. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put any number of them into your graveyard and the rest back on top of your library in any order. This also has flashback for 1 and a blue. And for me, this is just a nice, cheap spell. And although we'll get into this here in a little bit, but there aren't any of those staple artifacts that I really like, those mana rocks, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But I think this one here kind of fills that gap in its own little way. It's kind of like a Xerox card a little bit. I just think it's not Consider, and we can talk about that one here in just a little bit too, which I think Consider is awesome. I think this is a step down from that card, definitely. But I think this card fits a lot of different archetypes that are being run in this set. So I think it just fits into a lot more stuff. So, and I say that, and I'm still giving it like a C+. It's not something that I'm like, oh, I see this card and I want to start picking it. I would be perfectly fine playing a card like this over plenty of other filler cards at this point. But again, I had a C+. Limited Resources called this a D or an F. You had this at a C-, so you kind of split the difference between us.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think this card here is just a nice engine just to keep things going. If you had this like pack 3, pick 12, 13, whatever, you just need a couple more cards just to kind of fill that's on color. I'm picking this up, and I'm glad to play it.
Yeah, I think that's why they probably rated it D or F. Not because you're going to be sad about it, but because it's like they view it, I think, as like the chaff that's going to be filling things up. I think this card just totally comes down to how intense is the synergy in this set. If it's like super graveyard synergistic, this card suddenly becomes really great.
Sure.
Which might be the case. I mean, original Innistrad had cards like that months into the format, people finally realized, oh, this card, that seems like a do nothing, actually fuels this spider spawning deck or whatever it was.
Sure.
So that could definitely be the case. I think that's why I went with a C-. Honestly, it's like I was hedging my bets. My heart was saying D or F, but I was like, maybe it could be something.
Sure. Yeah.
Again, this could definitely be a prospective like award card later on. Like this might be just the thing that makes a combo deck go off in this format.
Yeah. Okay, are you ready for my soapbox?
Let's go.
Okay. Let's talk about Secrets of the Key.
Yeah, we both tagged that one to talk about.
Yeah, okay. So, grade-wise, you and I give this a D or an F. Limited Resources gives us a C-, which is just barely passing. So, like, we're going semantics here on this one, probably.
But they say, I mean, the C grade category means it's average, it's okay, it's playable, and we're saying we don't like it in our decks.
No, I absolutely hate this card. And I'll tell you why. So, let's read off the card first. So, for blue mana, it's an instant, common, investigate. If this spell was cast from a graveyard, investigate twice instead. And this has flashback, 3 and a blue. So, I think I've mentioned this actually on the podcast before, but the way I'm going to equate this here, it's 11 mana to draw 3 cards, okay, with that investigate.
That's right.
So my dad is a huge fan of Red Lobster. And I'm going to equate this for this. Yes, the Admiral's Feast. And if Dad spends $11 to get 3 shrimp on his damn Admiral's Feast, he's not buying that. That's not a good value. Why the fuck are we even talking about this card? It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm not spending 11 mana to get 3 cards. It's atrocious. I hate this card so much, and for them to just like, it's fine if that's the card that they like. But damn, this is probably one of the more inefficient cards I've seen in a long, long time.
Totally.
I hate it.
I mean, this makes Mysterious Tome look like an absolute godsend.
Oh, it does. Absolutely.
Crazy value.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, to me, I see this card, and if I saw this card out of context, didn't know what set it was in, I would be like, this is probably in like a Modern Horizon set where artifacts matter, because this can make a bunch of artifacts with the clues.
Sure.
Or maybe it's in some set where like having clue tokens matters, like something where you get a certain amount and you can sacrifice them to do things. Maybe something like that. That's
nothing.
This is just strictly like you're paying mana to get a clue. You have to pay extra mana to crack the clue to get the card.
Yeah.
So just on the face of it, this is in your hand. You pay a blue mana, investigate, get a clue. You pay 2 more mana, so you're 3 mana in. You draw your first card. Then at some point in the future, you spend 4 mana to do nothing. You just get 2 more clues. And then at some point in the future, you pay 2 mana and then 2 mana again to get 2 more cards. Yeah, I think it's obviously way better than pay 11 mana, draw 3 cards.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It's clearly way better than that.
Right.
They mentioned the fact that it's 11 mana overall for 3 cards. They mentioned that their big thing is that it's on the installment plan. Like, you get to decide when you spend the mana and what you're doing. So, it's an instant. So, turn 1, it's free. Like, you're rarely doing anything on turn 1. And then, turn 2, maybe you gotta play, maybe you don't. You crack a clue. And then some turn you have 2 mana laying around, you spend it. And then some turn in the future, you don't have anything going on. I get that it can fit in all these places. Sure. But tell me there's not a better. Like, I would have rather have any other card that did anything than this.
Yeah, absolutely. Mysterious Tome would be a better fit. And I ranked them both Ds or Fs.
Mysterious Tome, just looks amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I am up on the soapbox with you. I marked that one because I was like, what?
Yeah.
Let me just read my actual...
Okay. All right,
I said, man, this card blows. Are we really going to have time to do all this shit? You're talking 3 mana to cycle and get your card back, and then an extra 6 mana and multiple turns to actually get value. This seems very comparable to Bag of Holding to me from the last set, which is the card that they just scolded you about. It's the same thing where it's like, pay a little bit of mana here, a little bit of mana there, a little bit of value here, a little bit of value there. It's like, there's not time to do that in a normal set, let alone one that seems like it's going to be at least a little bit aggressive.
Yeah, exactly.
I just don't see this as being
I don't either.
Worth it.
I really don't.
Alright, we agree.
Okay, that's the important part.
On to black.
On to black. Okay, so I've got a couple here in black. Actually, a few, now that I'm actually scrolling down here and looking. Oh my. So, first one I want to touch on here is Covert Cut Purse. And that is 2 and a black. It's a human rogue creature. 2/1. It's an uncommon. When Covert Cut Purse enters the battlefield, destroy target creature you don't control that was dealt damage this turn. Now, this also has Disturb, which is another mechanic within the set here. So, Disturb 4 and a black. You may cast this card from your graveyard transformed for its Disturbed cost. Okay, so that transforms card is Covetous Geist. It's a spirit rogue, 2/2, flying death touch. Now, if Covetous Geist would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile instead. That's probably the typical that you're going to see. So all of them are going to have that.
All the Disturbed transform versions, when they die, they get exiled. Because otherwise you could just keep
Exactly. They're going to keep cycling. That would be very difficult to deal with. So, with this one here, I gave this a C-. You gave this a B. Limited Resources gave this a B-. And I barely think this is playable, so I have it as the C-. And my thoughts were like, is this good? Like, this is the card that actually made me wonder if the whole mechanic is subpar, is it good? Because I don't feel like paying 5 mana for a 2/2 flying death touch. So I'm comparing that one to Vampire Nighthawk, which is 2 and black, 2/3 flying death touch.
1 black even.
1 black. So it's even cheaper than that. I just for me personally, I think Disturb's going to be a little underwhelming. Now, I'm fully prepared to be wrong on that one. I hope it does, actually. I think that's a really cool mechanic. I really like it a lot, but I just think, especially with Covert Cut Purse, I just kind of think that mechanic might be a little underwhelming. So I think this is probably going to propagate through the rest of my cards, and this is where I'm going to get kind of dinged, because it kind of looks like you and Limited Resources really like this mechanic. So,
I really like this.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think I have 2 different thoughts.
Okay.
One's about Disturb in general, and one's about this card in particular.
Okay.
So my first thought with Disturb in general is you kind of have to think about, you're getting a little bit free rolled. So you're getting a creature of like average value, let's say, just on the front side. And then it dies, and then at some point in the future, when you have the mana available and you're not doing anything else, you get some other card. You get another creature card.
Sure.
It's like, on a turn where you might normally draw a land and have nothing to do, now you have an extra option that you can use.
That's fair.
So, think about a card like, what's the name of it? It's in my cube. It's 1 and a black. It makes your opponent sacrifice a creature. It makes both players it makes your opponent sacrifice a creature, that's right. And then it has flashback for 5 black. And it does the same thing.
Oh, Diabolic Edict?
No, because that's the one that makes both people do it, I think.
Okay.
God damn it. Hold on. Fucking Chainer's Edict.
Chainer's Edict.
Chainer's Edict.
Okay.
Do I just take the whole thing again? Fuck it. No, we're going
There
line.
You go.
Anyway, 2 mana, make someone sacrifice a creature, is okay by itself. And then it has this insanely expensive 7 mana, make them sacrifice. That's good enough to be okay in cube, or good in cube even.
It's fair.
So the fact that the extra thing you get on top is expensive isn't necessarily the worst thing.
Okay.
Obviously, the best cards are going to have like a really nice flashback,
sure,
which is why we both liked that blue-white gain life, draw cards, discard cards.
Yeah.
I've already forgotten the name, but we like that because they were comparable. But the fact is, you don't have to care too much about the flashback, the disturb, whatever the cost is, because you're getting that kind of for free.
Sure. Yeah.
This card in particular, I feel like I have some extra insight into because I've been playing the last few formats, and both of the formats, I think the last 2 or 3 I've played, there's been a card like this in black where it comes into play, it kills a creature that was dealt damage. And they've been consistently doing better than I thought when I first saw them.
Very good.
They typically pick up a creature when they come into play.
Okay.
So a 3-mana 2/1 kills a creature a fair percentage of the time is already something that a lot of decks are interested in. The fact that then it dies, because it's a 2/1, and it comes back as a 2/2 flying death touch.
Mm-hmm.
It can ping for damage. It's a brilliant chump blocker. It
Sure.
kills anything
Sure.
on its way out. It's just all upside. It's all juicy.
That's fair. That's fair.
So I think that's why I gave it that grade.
Very good. Very good. No, I like the sound of that, and I would like to see that one in play a little more. Those styles of cards are something I really don't gravitate towards, so it is one of those things where I could definitely be convinced either way on something like that. So
That's what I'm saying too. Like, I think by default I agree with you. It's just that I had my ass kicked enough by just 3 mana things that kill a creature when they come into play.
Well, that's good data to have for sure. So it's definitely something I'll have to consider. Okay, so I have another one here too. It's Crawl from the Cellar. It's just black mana. It is a common sorcery. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target zombie you control. And it also has flashback for 3 and a black. So this one here, this is me just kind of looking at the set as a whole. So I'm kind of stepping back. I was like, okay, how many zombies do we have? There's 13 zombie cards in this set. That's not many. Adding a 1/1 counter is fine if you can like build around it. Now I'm not going to look at this card and say, "Oh, I want to build around this thing."
Right.
That's not what I'm doing.
Right.
There's another type of zombie. It's the Decaying Zombie. I call them the shitty zombies.
They are the shitty zombies.
I hate these things. These things are the dumbest thing ever. They're sack outlets. They honestly they remind me a lot of the Eldrazi Spawn. Yeah, that's what they remind me a lot. But they're even worse than that because they don't even provide any mana.
They're way less than a full card.
Yeah, I agree. Because with these Decaying Zombies, I believe they're all 2/2s.
Yep.
If you attack with them, you have to sacrifice them after you attack with them, and they can't block.
So they're just attackers.
Yeah, they're just attackers.
1 turn attacks.
Yeah, 1 turn attackers. They just you're just throwing at.
Just not ideally where you want to put your +1/+1 counters.
No, you don't want to put them there. And then you've got 13 zombie cards. Like I said, if you've built a zombie deck, then sure, this is a supplement to it. But I'm not looking at this card to actually build a zombie deck. So, okay, first time you do it for 1 mana. And then you want to do it again for 4 mana? I don't see this thing. Like there's 2 cards, and we didn't really talk about these because we didn't really have any difference with them. But if you have like Champion of the Perished, I love the name of that card, by the way. Like I just think that's so awesome that they did that. And Grizzly Ghoul.
Also good.
Also very good cards for zombie decks. That's 2 cards, and we've listed over 10% of them. So, eek. I don't think this is a very good card. I said this was a D or an F. You said this was a C+, so you thought this was like a good average card, a quality average card, and so did Limited Resources. Both said C+ with this one. So
yeah, I
struggle with this. I really don't like those. Like I said, the shitty zombies. I don't like those.
I mean, the LR was not fans of them either in their show. I mean, they emphasized like this is worse than a 1/1 normal ass token. Yeah. The fact that you can't block is huge.
Yeah.
And Marshall, he was saying his whole thing about this, he's like, I don't think I'll ever attack with 1. I'm looking for other things to do with them, sacrificing them to things.
Yeah.
Whatever you got to do. I mean, this card, as far as the zombie upside, I see that as like the tiniest little cherry on top. It's mostly I'm viewing this as a Raise Dead, which is not that good, but that is a 2-for-1 eventually. 1 mana Raise Dead plus a 4 mana at some point is kind of sweet to me.
Okay.
Because a 1 mana Raise Dead is like a D or F. It's like you will always be happy playing it. It will get you a card back. You'll play it again. The fact that this is a 2-for-1 eventually, and it's not obscenely late. You know, it's not obscenely
fair.
There will be a point where you have 4 mana and you can get something back. Again, I am also not over the moon about this card. I just think it'll be a steady source of action.
Sure. Yeah, that's okay. That's fair. I get that.
Okay, so let's talk about Eaten Alive, since we both have something to say about that. Eaten Alive is a black mana for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sack a creature or pay 3 and a black. exile target creature or planeswalker. They gave it a B. You gave it a B minus. I gave it a C plus.
Okay.
So, we're
there.
We're all in the neighborhood. Yep. The biggest thing for me just looking at this, and if I had thought about it a little bit harder, I would have been way on board for this, are those shitty tokens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a great place to dump a crappy decayed token. Mm-hmm. And the decayed tokens are so bad, they throw them onto tons of cards. Tons of cards in the set will just give you a decayed token, basically for free.
Right.
Like, for example, there's a card that is functionally a reprint of Mind Rot. 3 and a black, they discard 2 cards, and they just give you a decayed token on top, just for free.
Sure.
Because they're not very good. But suddenly when you have something like Eaten Alive, that turns this into a 1-mana exile anything, which is incredible. So that was just a huge overlook for me. That's not on them, that's on me for not seeing it.
Okay. That's fair. So let me ask you this. So this card's very close, in my opinion, I think this card is very close to Rite of Oblivion. So let me talk about Rite of Oblivion. So Rite of Oblivion is white and black. It's a sorcery. Has an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a non-land permanent. Very similar in that regard. Exile, target non-land permanent. This has flashback for 2 white and a black. I think these are close. I think these are really close cards, considering what they are. And I think that's really saying something for Eaten Alive just being at a common. I think Eaten Alive is primo common removal for this one. I think they really hit it out of the park. And I think people are going to snatch this one up very quickly.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. Another thing too is that this just has a requirement of black, versus you have to have both colors with Rite of Oblivion. So I think that beyond just the cost of it being cheaper, in addition, it's just one color. And I think it's great to have something like this.
This also has a buyout. Rite of Oblivion, you really have to be in the white-black token sacrifice kind of deck before it gets good.
Yeah.
This one, if you have to pay 5 mana to kill something, that's a card that you would play in any set.
Sure.
It's not a great card, but a fine card that you would happily have in your deck. So it has a good buyout situation as well.
Yeah. No, I thought that was just an interesting comparison to have those. So it kind of depends on your opinion on flashback as well. That is definitely something that Eaten Alive does not have, which Rite of Oblivion does. So it kind of depends on how you value those kinds of cards. So, but I just thought that was an interesting comparison on those.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, okay, Ken. I don't know if you know this, but for Ghoulish Procession, you get only one shitty zombie per turn.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, so if Wizards didn't tell you enough, you get 1 shitty zombie per turn. You just get 1. I don't know if I can explain that to you. If Wizards did not explain that to you enough, you just get 1 per turn.
That's very unfortunate. Why did I give that even?
So let me tell you what Wizards has described.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so Ghoulish Procession is 1 and a black. It's an enchantment. It's uncommon. Whenever 1 or more non-token creatures die, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed. This ability triggers only once each turn. So it doesn't matter how many non-token creatures die. You get 1, and you only get 1 per turn.
Right.
You can't just sacrifice all in one go, and then you sacrifice in your second end step. You get 1.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. This is an enchantment that doesn't do anything by itself. Can get you a Decayed token every turn? Why did I give this a good grade? I give it a C. I didn't give it a great grade.
Well, I gave it a D or an F. Limited Resources gave us a build around C. I'm sorry, but if you're putting 4 or more of these cards in your deck, this is not the way.
Yeah, I gotta chalk that one up to being tired. Thank God it paid out for me, but I don't super agree with it.
Yeah, I don't see this one going anywhere. I really don't.
All right, let's talk about one last black card.
Okay.
Just because I see you said the words Beetlejuice.
Yeah, the Beetlejuice Mirror. The Beetlejuice Mirror. This thing sucks.
Says you.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
Oh, I hate it. I hate it so much. This goes back to, it's like the Mysterious Tome.
It's very similar.
It's at least I'm consistent. At least I've got that. Okay, so what I call the Heirloom Mirror, I call it the Beetlejuice Mirror. It is 1 black artifact, uncommon, very similar to the Tome. Okay, pay 1, tap, pay 1 life, discard a card. Draw a card, mill a card, then put a ritual counter on the Beetlejuice Mirror. Then if it has 3 or more ritual counters on it, remove them and transform it. Activate only as a sorcery. The transformed is Inherited Fiend. It's a demon, 4/4 flying, 2 and a black. Exile target creature card from a graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on Inherited Fiend. That part's cool.
Yes.
My God, the setup for this is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous for this thing.
No way. This is gonna be our most heated discussion yet.
I'm looking forward to this one. I got some.
I got the facts.
Yeah, I got the facts for you. Okay, so I'm going to compare this card to a common card, Ecstatic Awakener. Okay? So Ecstatic Awakener is black mana, so cheaper. It's a creature, it's a human wizard, it's a 1/1. You pay 2 and a black, you sacrifice another creature, sounds very similar. Draw a card, then transform Ecstatic Awakener. Activate only once each turn. The transformed version of this is Awoken Demon. It's a 4/4 demon. It's nothing else. It's just vanilla 4/4 demon. Okay. So, what I had to do there, in that one, is pay 4 mana, 2 black and black for the cost, and then also the activation cost. And I had to sacrifice a creature. I can sacrifice one of those shitty zombies, and now I've got a 4/4 demon that I can attack the next turn with. With the Beetlejuice Mirror, okay, I gotta pay...
The price is right.
Yeah, I gotta pay 5 total mana, 3 life. I've got to discard 3 cards. I get to draw 3 cards, but okay, I'll give you that. And I gotta mill 3 cards on top of that, so it's a net minus 3 cards. So, I mean, I do realize and acknowledge that milling 3 cards in this set is not the worst in the world, but you can't choose which one's actually going to the graveyard. And then you get a 4/4 flyer 3 turns later. It's like... There's so much setup for this shit, and I just think this is just goddamn awful.
Here's what I would say, though.
Okay.
Here's where I think the positive side comes in.
Okay.
So you pay 2 mana, pay 1 life.
Okay.
That's the actual cost.
Sure.
After that, you're discarding a card, which can be positive for you. If you discard a flashback card, you discard a disturb card, what have you. Discard a creature card, because eventually that'll be useful for the demon you're about to spawn. Draw a card, obviously.
Sure, yeah, that part's good, yeah.
Mill a card, that's just net positive. In this set, it's just good to mill.
Okay.
Because you're not going to mill yourself out, and filling up your graveyard is a positive thing in a set that has multiple ways to dig around and turn your graveyard in. Your graveyard is a resource in this format in particular.
That's fair.
So basically, you're paying a life and a mana to get 3 things that you really want to have happen. So it's not as much of a cost as you think. Okay. It's actually, there's a lot of upside in just activating it, even without. Okay. Like, if they just let you do this in general, I have a hunch that this would still be pretty good, actually.
Okay.
The ability to put stuff into your graveyard, draw cards, discard, like, multiple ways of putting things into your graveyard is nice, and then also getting cards out of it while you do it. This is just a sweet engine for all kinds of silly shit in your graveyard.
Okay. All right.
I think it's pretty sweet. I think it's actually... I like the comparison that you make between these two. Although the issue is, like, here's my thing. You play Ecstatic Awakener. You pay the 3 mana, sacrifice another creature, draw a card and transform it. It turns into a 4/4. I kill your 4/4 or I kill your 1/1 or whatever it is. Sure. And you haven't gotten that much. If you kill my demon, my Beetlejuice demon, after I've activated it, I'm way ahead of you at this point. I've drawn multiple cards. I've filled up my graveyard. I'm feeling pretty.
Okay.
And now you kill my demon. I don't care. I'm way ahead on resources.
Okay.
I think it's actually pretty good.
So, my question would be, I can get an ecstatic... My question is, I can get an Ecstatic Awakener on turn 3. The soonest you could possibly get your Beetlejuice would be turn 5. If you're lucky on that one. Assuming everything goes right. Is that quick enough?
I think this is a Matrix, perhaps we're asking the wrong questions.
Okay,
kind of thing.
okay.
I really do think the value in the Heirloom Mirror is activating it, not in flipping it.
Okay.
Flipping it is a nice little...
It's a bonus.
It's nice.
Okay.
It is
okay.
good. Don't get me wrong. It's nice to flip it. But like I said, if you just had the mirror side and it couldn't transform, I think this still would be a good card that you would want to have and keep doing on repeat, basically.
Okay.
So I think the cost of this is actually just good in general.
Okay.
It's something close to just pay 1, draw a card.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Well, I tell you what, we'll go up head to head. I'll have my Ecstatic Awakeners. I will be attacking you for, let's see, on turn 2, I'll attack you for 1. On turn 3, I'll attack you for another 4, so that's 5 damage. Turn 4, I'll attack you for another, so that's 9 damage. All the while you're trying to activate your stuff where you've paid one life, so you got to do that 3 times. So that's another 3 life. That's 12 health that we're up to right now. I like my chances. You can have your 3 cards in the graveyard.
We'll see.
While you're just at 8 health. I'll take care of that, no problem.
This is contentious. This is going to be.
I like this one.
This is going to be a big test at the end of the format.
This will be the one right here where either gets a victory card for one of us, and it'll be the big defeat for the other.
I am very interested.
I think this will be the one. Very curious.
All right, on we go.
Okay.
On to red. What do I want to talk about? Let's skip a little bit and just talk about Flame Channeler. Flame Channeler is 1 in a red for a 2/2 creature human wizard. When a spell you control deals damage, transform it. It turns into a 3/3 embodiment of flame. When a spell you control deals damage, put a flame counter on it, pay 1, remove a flame counter, exile the top card. You can play that card this turn. You give it a B- build around. You gave it a B+. I gave it a C+. I'm just, like, this is one of those cards, and we've had a few of these every set, I feel like, where you go back and you look at it and you're like, what did I not like about this card? A 2-mana 2/2 is, like, that's fine in any deck. Literally, you can just run that in any deck, and it's cool. You're in red, you're going to play things that transform it, and when it does, it's a 3/3 that will draw you at least 1 card. Like, it's just all sweet, and there's no reason for me to not have liked it at all. I assume you gave build around just because you would maybe want to focus on some more like damage dealy stuff.
Yeah, exactly. In my notes I said this would be an excellent card to play with fire and Moonranger Slash. Very efficient. This is like for play with fire. We don't have to go into each one of those, but essentially like a shock, and then like Moonranger, it's a conditional lightning bolt. I know some people were calling it the frightening bolt because of the night, which I was like, okay, that's a good play on the words right there. I like that one. So if you can get a bunch of cards like that, and then you get a Flame Channeler, I think that's a excellent deck that you could be winning with.
Yeah, I just fucked that card up. No excuse. That's just a good card.
Well, talking about fuck ups, let's talk about Pax Betrayal. This one here, I actually, on my notes, I called it Wizard's Betrayal because I thought this thing was just so bad. I called it, this thing's a D or an F. Okay. So this is, and it's a very common theme that you actually see throughout a lot of sets.
Pretty much every set has a card like this.
Yeah, exactly. So Pax Betrayal, you'll know it as soon as you hear it, like what kind of card this is. So it's 2 in a red, it's a sorcery. Gain control of a target creature till end of turn, untap that creature, it gains haste. So you attack with it. Obviously, it's one of those cards. So, but if you control a wolf or a werewolf, you get to scry 2 as well. That part's pretty cool.
Little bonus on top.
Yeah, a little bonus on top. It's whatever.
Every set has this where it's like 2 in a red, gain control temporarily, some minor upside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. For me, and maybe I'm just thinking too highly of this, but I remember the original Innistrad had Zealous Conscripts. Mm-hmm. So maybe I just had that in the back of
rare.
my mind. Yeah, it was a rare. I will give it that. But it was like on a body. It was attacking for 3 of haste, and you're getting 3+ whatever.
And it's any permanent, I think, or maybe just
I think it's any permanent. Yeah, non-land permanent, I believe. I was like, oh, yeah, all right, let's go here. And then I get this just turd. So I'm like, it's a creature. It's not even on a body. I don't care about the Scry 2. I'm not playing this. I give it a D or an F. You gave us a C. And then Limited Resources gave this anywhere from C+ to a B-. So I was way off with this one. I admit I was being pretty hard on this one, just because I didn't see it on a body. So, and that was probably a bias on my part. So
yeah,
that was just a miss on my part. So
I tell you, the ultimate wombo combo with this card is Eaten Alive.
Oh, that's excellent.
3 mana, you get their creature, their best creature, you attack them with it, and then 1 black mana, sack it, kill their other best thing.
Ooh, that's nasty right there.
Brutal.
That is very brutal.
I mean,
that's a good combo.
It's dreaming big, but they're just 2 commons.
Yeah,
like
you can get them.
That's definitely something that will happen in this format quite a bit, and it's very strong. And black just has good, sack outlets as well.
Yeah, I very much think there was even some staples in red-black, so it's definitely in there. And that you're talking about 4 mana. That's very easy to
and you're
to accomplish.
Hitting them for a big swing and killing their 2 best creatures.
Oh man, that's brutal. Yeah. I'd probably just concede on that one.
Yeah, that's gross. So I thought
really
that was enough for me to carry.
Okay,
at least to just good playable.
Okay, hey, I'm convinced. I would not rate this the D or F that I originally did.
So. That's the combo.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Oh God, you love Play with Fire.
I absolutely love Play with Fire. So I think this is a very good card. I rated this on par with Moonranger Slash, the one I called the Frightening Bolt. So let's talk about Moonranger Slash real quick. So 2 in a red, instant. The spell costs 2 less to cast if it's night. Moonranger Slash deals 3 damage to any target. It's a lightning bolt at night. It's like, that's fantastic. That is primo removal.
Yeah.
Like that's as close as we're probably gonna get to a lightning bolt anymore.
Yeah.
I really think that. And I gave that a B+. We all did across the board.
A lightning bolt sometimes is a great card.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Play with Fire is red. It's an instant, uncommon. Play with Fire deals 2 damage to any target. If a player was dealt that damage this way, scry 1. So this is Shock, which I think is another great card for defensively. It's not Lightning Bolt. I will give it that. I mean, it's obviously 1 damage less. But this can be played anytime. It can target anything. So it's not limited. I know Wizards has been big into limiting what things can get destroyed, and I get really annoyed with that. Don't have to worry about it with this. This is just a flat 2 damage to whatever.
Yep.
And if it's a player, I get to scry 1 on top of it. That's kind of bonus stuff. Like that's
very,
whatever.
Very marginal upside.
Very marginal upside. I'm not really basing it off that. But I still
just
think,
Shock.
Yeah, it's Shock. I still give this a B+. It's not, obviously it's not as good as the Frightening Bolt that we've been talking about. But if I'm getting Play with Fire, if I'm getting Moonranger Slash, I'm feeling pretty good. I've got a nice, fast red deck. If I can get some stuff that works well with instant sorceries, that's where Delver's Secrets could come into play. That's where the card that we just talked about, the Flame Channeler.
Right.
I think if you got some stuff like that, there's some other red cards in here that actually gets pumped with red and blue. That is one of the archetypes in here. So red and blue really cares about your spells. Mm-hmm. So these are staple cards to be putting in there. So I thought this was a B+ here. I think this is an excellent card as well. It's obviously not like rares and stuff like that if you see a rare that's like obviously better.
Right.
But I still think this is really high up there. If you're seeing some of these cards going around, you need to go to it. If you see that this lane is open, you need to go there and you're going to win.
Here's a question.
Okay.
It's kind of a similar question that you posed me earlier. You have a pack where you have a choice between Moonranger Slash and Play with Fire. Which one are you taking?
Well, it's Moonranger Slash just because of the upside on that one.
Yeah.
It's one of those where it's upside versus like a stable floor, I guess you would say. I like the upside on, and that is a red player's probably thinking, for at least my thinking as a red player. I'd rather have the upside.
I also think the Slash, like as far as the floor goes, like your fail case is 3 mana, deal 3 to any target, which is a perfectly good card.
That's fine.
You're very happy to have that card in your deck. You would put that in any red deck, even without the possibility of having the discount.
Sure.
I think the thing that holds Play with Fire back is the same thing that holds Shock back, because they're effectively the same card, which is that they suffer in multiples. You really only want 1, maybe 2 in a deck, because how many targets are your opponent going to have that you can really hit with Play with Fire? I think it's a good card, and any red deck would want at least one copy of this. But it falls off super hard.
That's fair.
I don't think it's first pickable.
That's fair.
Like, you would be sad if you had to take this first pick, I think.
Yeah, that's not something I'd want to pick. Would you want to pick Moonranger Slash?
I think that is first pickable.
You think so? Okay.
I mean, a Bolt is definitely first pickable.
That's fair. Yeah.
And this is a Bolt with a fine floor if it's not one.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know?
That's fair.
Interesting card. Do I want to talk about that? We've talked enough about red, I feel like.
Okay.
Let's go on to green.
Okay.
And let's talk about Defend Celestis.
Okay.
This is 2 green for an instant. It is a cone of +1/+1 counters, kind of. Distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among 1, 2, or 3 target creatures you control. So it's 4 mana for 3 power and toughness, and then you get to move them around as you wish. Being instant speed, of course, it's also potentially a combat trick.
Sure.
Or multiple combat tricks. I gave it a B+. It looked very good to me. They gave it a C+, you gave it a C-. I think this is going to be really good. Holding up 4 mana is tough, but it's got really huge blowout potential. If you get into a big combat, attacking or blocking, and they are not ready for this, they're just going to get absolutely destroyed.
Sure.
You're going to eat 1 or 2, or in like best case scenario, 3 creatures, and you're going to be left with a monster. Even if you just eat 1 creature with this, like, you know, you block their 5/5 with your 3/3. Their 5/5's dead, and now you have a 6/6.
Yeah.
That's pretty huge. So the blowout potential is definitely there. And then your fallback position is it's 4 mana, put 3 1/1 counters on something, or distribute them as you wish. Because you can, if you have other creatures, you can avoid having all of your eggs in one basket.
Sure.
B+ is probably a little bit aggressive for my grade, but just given the pure blowout potential, I think this card is in the B category. Probably B- would be more appropriate.
Okay. Yeah.
In which case, I'd be pretty close to LR's grade, but
yeah, I could probably go up on this one a little bit. I thought it's funny because it's 4 mana for 3 power toughness. I'm like, well, here comes the Hill Giant again. I thought that was funny just to see this card here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess technically this is definitely better than a Hill Giant.
Sure.
Definitely.
Oh, absolutely. It's a Hill Giant in spirit.
Yeah, I'll probably get dinged on it again though at the end of the day.
But another thing too, Coven is very much a mechanic that green works well with, and this here can definitely...
You can play with the numbers.
Yeah, can definitely enable Coven to get that going. So I think this is a good card. You'd mentioned I rated this as a C-. I could probably definitely go up on this one here, so to get a little bit closer to LR, who was split it with us.
Yep. I also have marked Path to the Festival.
Okay.
This is a card I should like, but didn't in this case. This is 2 and a green, sorcery. Search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Then, if there are 3 or more basic land types among lands you control, scry 1. And flashback is 4 and a green. Now, I kind of look at the flashback and I don't care, because at the point where you're spending 5 mana to ramp, like, what are you ramping into?
Yeah.
Like, that's not much upside. So this is really just 3 search for a land and put it into play tapped, which is maybe okay. I can see coming up to a C- on this. But I don't know. I definitely did not see ramp as being any kind of deck.
Yeah, that was just it. There was just so little ramp that I thought, well, this was...
Maybe it's the only choice you have.
Yeah.
What I mean is, like, what are we ramping into?
No, that's fair. That's fair. I'm thinking more of mana fixing at this point with this one because there are a lot of multicolored cards. And I know there are a lot of multicolored lands within this, but if you don't get anything like that, then this is a viable option.
Not at common and uncommon.
No, it really isn't. So it's going to be tough trying to get these multicolored cards. So I think this was especially if you are in green, you're probably going to want to pick one, maybe two of these up here. The flashback cost is rough. I'm not going to lie, but
yeah, I mean, you're happy to have it. Like,
yeah.
You can thin out your deck, get an extra land into play. It's not a bad thing to have it on.
Sure.
There. I just don't think it's not really upside.
Yeah, that's fair. All
right. You got any more in green you want to talk about?
Nothing really in green. That it wasn't really anything exciting there that I really needed a soapbox on there.
Well, then let's round it out with colorless and lands. Yet again, the pattern continues. Artifacts suck a million balls. And I went hard on it. I did too. All D's or F's.
You did. You did.
You gave D's or F's, and you gave a couple of C minuses.
Yeah.
Which actually wound up paying off on one card, which I wanted to talk about, Silver Bolt.
Okay.
Silver Bolt is 1 generic mana for an artifact. Pay 3, tap it, sacrifice it. It deals 3 damage to target creature. If you had a werewolf, you destroy it instead.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm just so used to seeing this kind of card, the colorless removal spell that you sacrifice. Mm-hmm. It's cheap to play, expensive to activate, and it's never very good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because of that, that kind of slipped under the radar for me.
Sure.
And like the last one we saw was Spiked Pit Trap, which was okay.
Yeah.
In the last set, which was 1 to play and 5 to trip, I think.
Yeah.
And this is 2 mana cheaper. So you're talking 1 to play and then 3 mana to deal 3 to anything.
Mm-hmm.
It finally has gotten to a place where this actually is okay.
Mm-hmm.
I gave it a D or F. They gave it a C, C+. You gave it a C minus. Yeah. Actually, and the werewolf thing is relevant. Like, it's fine to put in any deck, and then occasionally you'll go against a werewolf, and this will be amazing.
Mm-hmm. I kind of wonder, because for me, whenever I was reviewing all these cards, I'm like, man, werewolves are strong in this. And I kind of wondered if Wizards is like, oh crap, we've made this too strong. We need a silver bolt here. Yeah,
that is funny.
I kind of wondered maybe that's me personally. I think maybe that was their concession to say, well, we might have overtuned a little bit on werewolves, so here's something to maybe kind of keep them in check a little bit. I probably should have made this. I did not make this a sideboard card, but I probably should have in retrospect. Yeah, I think this actually sees some play.
I think that's what makes it good, though, is that even if you're not, you can just main deck it.
You can.
And not feel bad about it, because the rate 4 mana deal 3 is not embarrassing.
Yeah. No, it's not bad.
Especially because you can split up the cost among 2 different turns. That makes it a lot more reasonable.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Are we ready then?
It's the big reveal?
To see who came out on top.
Okay.
Oh, boy. Final score. Seth 278, Kenny 180.
Dang.
What?
A blowout.
That seems crazy.
That must have been a game of attrition right there, because I didn't really have too many, overly...
I will say, you and I were talking a little bit before the show. I really did get reamed in the multicolor uncommons.
Sure.
As I got towards the end, especially, I think we both... Basically, the point where you started having the cards you wanted to talk about, I noticed I was just hitting 1s and 0s very repeatedly. Mm-hmm. That still shocks me.
Yeah.
I did not feel that confident at all.
Well, there we go. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think one thing that I told myself that I would do with this set was I'm usually giving cards the benefit of the doubt, and I'm giving them a higher rating overall. And I'll be curious to see if the pendulum swing the other way with this now if I'm ranking too low. So I need to check that and see where I am, the precision versus the accuracy standpoint. So maybe I went a little too far with the other thing, because I was definitely harsher on cards, and I was not afraid to go with the extremes, like doing the B pluses or the Bs.
You can make up a lot of points in this game by doing that.
Yeah.
Because occasionally, you give the D an F and so do they, and then your opponent goes C+. And it's a huge blowout.
It's a huge blowout at that point, yeah. So I'll be curious to see if I'm
what the total
low or if I'm high. So we just look at the absolute number. So we'll be curious. Well, congratulations.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
And thanks for being on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. This has been Red Mage, Blue Mage, Filthy Casuals Review, episode number, whatever the hell. You can catch us on Twitter at RedBlueMTG. I'm at Wolfmere.
I'm at CarterSA87.
And we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bitches.